Hey guys, so today we're going to be talking about the brand new Tom Ford Shade and Illuminate Face and Eye Palette in Red Harness. This is the Intensity 1 face palette that Tom Ford has just come out with. I did a review of the Rose Cashmere face palette, which is already up, and I will link it down below in my description box if you're interested in that one. That is this guy right here. So I'm going to be giving you some swatches, some comparison swatches, my thoughts on this palette, and then give you a demo of this look at the very end. All of the products on my face will be listed down below in my description box if you are interested. But let's go ahead and get into the details of this palette. So I purchased my face palettes off of the Tom Ford site. They sold out very, very quickly, and I don't think they're available there anymore. But as far as I know, retailers like Nordstrom and Neiman Marcus and Saks, etc., they will be carrying this product starting in May. So I will definitely let you guys know on my Instagram feed when these are available, and if you want to follow me there, that would be awesome if you're interested in new releases and such. So Tom Ford released 4 new palettes. I purchased 3 of them. So the Rose Cashmere, you guys saw the video on that already. We're going to be talking about the Red Harness in this video, and I did also purchase the Moonlit Violet one, which I will have a video up maybe at the end of this week or early next week. I'm trying to figure out my schedule, but anyway, that is coming. Each palette is $155, and there are 6 products in each. So there's a highlight, a bronze contour shade, and then 4 eyeshadows. So all of these new face palettes have this baked kind of like wet dry eyeshadow formula. Absolutely gorgeous. All of the previous face palettes that Tom Ford has come out with, except for one, they've all had the pressed powder formula, and they all came in the Soleil packaging. The packaging this time around is in like the brown, kind of like mahogany packaging, which is the same as the products in the regular line. So that's nice, a little bit of a change. There is a mirror on the inside of each compact, and these are all made in Italy. So why don't I go ahead and give you some swatches of all 3 of the palettes in case that's all you were interested in. I figured I'd show all 3 swatches in all 3 videos. So we'll start with the Red Harness palette. So on the left, you'll see the highlighter, and then you'll see the bronze. And then on the right, you'll see the 4 swatches for the eyeshadows. And then here are the swatches for the Rose Cashmere palette. Again, we have the highlight, the bronzer, and then the 4 eyeshadows. And then finally, we have the Moonlit Violet with the highlight, the bronze, and the 4 eyeshadows. So I have sung the praises for this formula from Tom Ford time and time again, so I'm not going to bore you, but all of these products are baked. I really, really enjoy baked products. They go onto the skin almost in a sheer-like way, but they have such a strong impact, whether it's the pigmentation or the shine of the highlight, and they tend to kind of like meld onto the skin. There's something about the heat in the skin and these kind of like baked gelée products. They just sort of like melt the product, and you'll see after you apply the product, maybe give it a couple minutes, you'll see like the product actually kind of like melts and meld onto the skin. And it's just absolutely flawless looking on the skin. So I'm a big, big fan of this formula. And this color story in the Red Harness is really, really rich. And I feel like this is a great kind of like day to night kind of palette. The Rose Cashmere is, for me, in my opinion, just a very like daytime light natural look. It is very, very soft. The Moonlit Violet, again, I'll talk about that in a dedicated video, but those colors I think also are similar to these, where they can go kind of day to night, but the shades in that palette are much, much cooler. So if you like something a little bit on the warmer side, this would be the one to consider. This red and this gold are really, really warm. And then this deep shade actually has a little bit of a cool tone to it. I don't know if you guys can see, but it has a little bit of like a purpley undertone. These 4 shades are really just such an interesting and lovely combination. I think they all work really, really well together, and you really cannot go wrong with this formula. They blend together beautifully. The pigmentation is buildable, but if you just kind of want like a sheer kind of like watercolor effect of the color, you just put down like a really light layer, just really blend it out nicely, and you get this just gorgeous wash of the color. So I tried to do a little bit of a lighter business on the inner corner here, and then build up the color a little bit more like on the outer corner. And I use this shade, again, you'll see all this in the demo at the end, but I use this shade to kind of, you know, smoke out my lash line, just a little bit, nothing too dramatically smoky, just something to kind of make it, again, a little bit more evening-like. And I feel like this red and this copper shade, I was afraid it was going to just be a little bit too bold on my eyes. But the formula, this wet dry formula, like I said, it's buildable. So you can really build up a nice wash of this color. And I think it ends up looking, I don't know, kind of mysterious. I just really, really like this color story. I just think it's so fetching. So why don't I go ahead and do some comparison swatches, because there are some shades, especially with these two shades, that I think are very similar. And now that this highlight is a little bit deeper, I do want to compare it to the highlighting duo that Tom Ford has in the Soleil packaging. So let's go ahead and do that. First, I want to compare the highlight to this duo. So this is the Sheer Highlighting Duo in Reflects Gilt, and this is that same kind of baked gelée formula. So I thought this would be a good comparison. So interestingly enough, because I thought it was going to be very similar to the lighter shade in that duo, we have the lighter shade in that duo, then this is the highlighter in the face palette, and then this is the deeper shade in the duo. So it falls right in between. It has a little bit of that peachy kind of warmth that the darker shade has, and a little bit less of just kind of like a yellow gold than the top one. So it's kind of like this nice hybrid between the two. But you can see the finish is pretty much exactly the same. And then next I want to compare the bronzer in the face palette to the two Soleil Glow bronzers. So this is Gold Dust and this is Terra. And here we have Gold Dust, Terra, and then the bronzer that's in the face palette. And again, I feel like this falls right in between the two. It's not quite as warm as the Gold Dust, but it's not quite as neutral as the Terra. It's like right in between there. I should mention that the formulas are different too. The Soleil Glow bronzer has like a very creamy kind of like pressed powder formula, and then this one is like a baked formula. The first quad that came to mind when I saw the foreshadows in this face palette was Body Heat. I just thought that this red was probably pretty similar to the red in there, and that this shade could be kind of close to the dark shade in the face palette. The one in the face palette definitely has a little bit more purple in it, but let's go ahead and swatch them side by side. All right, so here's the red shade from the palette. And then here is the red tone shade from Body Heat. So this is definitely cooler. This one is more, you know, it's brighter and it has a bit more warmth to it. And then here is the one from the face palette, and then that's the one from Body Heat. So yeah, this one has a little bit more of a purple, like a slight purple undertone to it. This one is just kind of like a straight up brown. I was also curious to see how close the red shade is to the red shade in the Pat McGrath Bronze Seduction palette. So I went ahead and swatched those next to each other. And the Bronze Seduction swatch is on the bottom. You can see how much more just like primary red it is. It almost makes the red-ish color in the face palette look orange. And the Pat McGrath is a touch more shiny. It's definitely more foiled looking. So I also thought of the Honeymoon palette. It's like, I don't know, I feel like they're related, but not quite the same. But I thought I would just go ahead and swatch all four next to one another. It's almost like the face palette is a little bit of like a brighter version of the Honeymoon. So here's the Honeymoon quad. And then here are the four shadows in the face palette. So I think the darkest shade is the most similar, and then everything else, like I said, I feel like this is like a warmer, brighter version than Honeymoon. And then of course that bright gold coppery shade reminded me of the Suspicion quad. So I thought I'd go ahead and swatch this one next to it. So this is from the face palette, and then this one is from Suspicion. So the face palette is a little bit deeper, a little bit more orange, a little bit warmer than Suspicion. And then last but not least, I thought I'd compare it to the Badass quad, which was not my favorite. There's something very different about this formula that I didn't like, but I thought I would swatch this shade up here with the darkest shade in the face palette. And here is the shade in the face palette, and here is the shade from the Badass quad. So this is much deeper, much darker than the face palette shade. All right, so that is it for the comparison swatches. You've heard my thoughts on this palette, and I really, really do enjoy this face palette. I think it's really beautiful. And you guys know how much I enjoy this particular formula from Tom Ford. I just think it's such high quality. I think it goes on seamlessly. It blends beautifully. I feel like it's beginner friendly. It's almost foolproof. So let's go ahead and dive into the demo. All right, so I'm gonna go into the bronzer slash shade slash contour shade here. And I've got my Rephr P22 brush. Again, because this is a baked product, I always recommend a denser, natural haired brush. I think synthetic haired brushes are a little bit too soft to pick up a baked product. So I've got my P22 brush. Ooh, I should have, I really should have knocked some off first. I don't think I realized how much I picked up. Okay, let's blend that out. Let's blend that out. Already this is deeper than the Rose Cashmere. I mean, that's obvious. This is intensity 1.0 versus Rose Cashmere being 0.5. Well, it blends out very nicely, especially when you mistakenly put on too much at first. All right, there is the bronze shade down. So still fairly neutral. I wouldn't say it's like extremely warm. It's just warmer than the Rose Cashmere one, but it looks, you know, fairly neutral on my skin tone, which is really nice. And since there's no cheek color in these face palettes, I took out one of the cheek colors from the regular line from Tom Ford. So this is the color Ravish, and I thought this would be kind of a nice match to this palette. This blush from Tom Ford happens to be more of like a demi matte finish, and it is very, very pigmented. So I'm gonna go lightly with this one. I'm gonna take my BK Beauty 104 brush because it's very fluffy, very, very fluffy, very light, and just pick up a little bit. That was just one tap into the blush. And I'm just gonna sweep it lightly onto my cheekbone. All right, a really, really light dusting of that blush. I think it gives me enough heat there. So let's go on to this highlighter. I'm gonna go in with my Sonia G Sculpt 2 brush. I'm just gonna make sure it's clean. I'm wiping it off on my microfiber towel and picking up quite a bit there. So again, I feel like this looks a little bit deep and warm for my skin tone, but once I get it onto the cheeks, I think because of its like really high wet shine finish, it looks good. Like I don't feel like I see an obvious gold kind of streak on my cheek, which is great. And obviously when I turn to the light, the shine is just, it's really, really intense. I'm just adding a little bit more bronzer back here. I just feel like that will look a little bit more seamless with the blush. All right, and now on to the eyeshadow. I'm very, very excited for this. We've got this really fun red tone color in here. We've got this really rich gold kind of copper shade in here. So I'm gonna use my Sonia G Worker 1 brush. I'm gonna go into this golden copper shade and start at the inner corner here and bring it out. Oof, that is incredible. And then I'm going to take the same brush and go into this red shade. Focus this on the outer corner of my eye and brush it over the gold to blend together. I'm going to take a clean blender type brush. This is the Crease 2 from Sonia G. And I'm just going to run that over the edges. And I'm going to take that same brush and go into this light shade up here and add that up top. Then I'm going to take my Sonia G Smudger 1 brush. I'm going to go into the deep shade here and I'm going to smoke out my lash line with this. I think I want to smoke that out a little bit more, so I'm going to take my Sonia G Mini Booster brush, go back into that dark shade, and really thicken up that area around the lash line. Just bringing back some of that red shade with the Crease 2 brush. Just kind of running that over the darker shade a little bit. And then I'm just going to take my ESMG 34 brush and just kind of run it very gently around the edges here, just to make sure it's blended out. All right, I'm all done with the palette. I'm gonna go ahead and finish up my eyes, put on some lips, and I'll be right back. All right, here is my final look. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And if you enjoyed this video, definitely check out my rose cashmere video, which I will link up here for you guys. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and subscribe down below. I would love that. And I'll see you in my next video.